I'm Marcel Clark. This is Hustle and Grow. Today I'm joined by Marshay Bradley. How you doing, Marshay?
Very good.
Thanks
Yeah.
for jumping on the show.
Thank you for
All
having
right.
me.
For all of y'all that don't know, like she's the perfect example that hustling is in your DNA because this is my oldest daughter. Besides that beautiful DNA you have, like tell everybody about your background a little bit.
Um, I'm pausing because I feel like my background is all over the place, but I started off my career in finance in big banks. So I was working at JP Morgan in investment banking. I studied economics at the University of Virginia for my undergrad. I live in New York, was living that big Wall Street life, and then I ended up changing my path and went into the startup world, which I think was my foray into entrepreneurship and wanted to do things a little bit different than the standard 9 to 5. So after going to the startup, it was called Betterment, basically infusing what I was already doing in investment in the investment world, but with tech because we were using technical products and algorithms to invest like the everyday person's money and not taking their money with fees and stuff. So that is where I went to Betterment. And then after that, I kind of got an inkling that I knew I wanted to do some entrepreneurship, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. So I applied to go to business school at Columbia and spent 2 years studying marketing and entrepreneurship while I was there. Fast forward to today, now I run my own company. It's called Buzzoms, and I also do marketing in real estate.
Okay. So that's a lot of good information for my viewers. So again, notice how she basically put in that education and that foundation to push her into the direction that she wanted to take. So Betterment, that's a pretty big company startup. What was your experience there? And like, what do you remember that kind of like inspired you to try to do your own thing?
I just remember working with people that were I mean, I came from a very like process driven industry to an industry that was really scrappy and innovative. And there were never any excuses as to like, oh, we wanted to do something new or we wanted to launch a product. They gave a new product or a new service. They always gave you autonomy to go and like try new things. And that is when they think in business school, they called it entrepreneurship, where you have the ability to like do a lot of entrepreneurial thinking within a company. And that's what I think Betterment did for me. So they taught me a lot about what it means to take a product from start to finish. There, I worked on a new business that they were launching, which was like um, a hybrid between like in-person management and their robo management, which is what they call it. And so I was helping them get that new business line off the ground. I was on a really small team. It was me, like one of 3 people, and then I also got to get some firsthand experience from our CEO because the company when I joined was pretty small. It's like 140 people. So, especially working on such a high profile launch, which was what my business was at the time, I got a lot of face time with him and I was able to talk to him a lot about what it meant to start a company and to, be kind of leading this change. At that time, it was 2016. This world of like robo investing was very new. I think now there are more companies that do it, but he was very much a pioneer in the industry. So that was exciting for me to learn from someone like that.
Wow, so that I like what you were speaking to with regards to he gave you guys that freedom to kind of like explore and try to take on challenges. Do you think that that was a really good way to have like a startup? The culture. Do you think that that was really helpful in building the culture to give you that kind of level of empowerment?
I think so because before I didn't know what you would do if you had an idea and how to act on that idea. I would always get caught up in like, so how do you bring this thing to life? But I think there I was able to witness how people would bring the products to life. And it would start off with something really simple, like a brief, a document, just outlining what you want to do. And that's essentially like a business plan per se when you are working on your own business and involving different people with different skill sets. So like who are the people that you need to bring together if you're trying to bring something new to market? Um, and just overall like I felt like I had a better understanding of like the tools that I would need if I ever wanted to take that path for myself. It really made it less scary because I was seeing people work on these new ideas and these new products every day, and I saw the resources that they needed to do that.
Yeah, see, I hope you guys caught that. I mean, those of you that are like trying to, create a business on a totally different scale, when you're creating these companies, what she's saying is she had that freedom. Like, right, when you're a boss, sometimes you want to control everything. But if you really are trying to grow your brand and grow your business, you should empower your employees. So she's saying that, she just felt like everybody on the team had the freedom to just express their ideas, try to execute on their ideas. That's another level, so that's a really big deal. So you leave in Betterment, you started thinking about the entrepreneurial journey, you end up in what is it, fashion?
Yes.
Okay, so like that's a really tough industry. How'd you choose fashion?
I didn't. I'd say I think I'm stylish, but I never was like a fashion queen or anything like that. I just, thought knew how to dress. But when I was in business school, there were a few classes that I would take about entrepreneurship, and all of them always centered on like what problem are you going to solve? Like start from solving a need, solving a problem. And so I just thought about some of the things that I had encountered in my life. And, I had had a problem with finding clothes that fit. Women are shaped different sizes. We've had like kind of this evolution in how we talk about like body sizing and shapes today. But even with like the way fashion has been going, which is more like open minded, I still couldn't figure out, I couldn't find things that like fit my specific body type. So I tend to have like a larger bust, but still a small build, not plus size. It's weird. So I was like, is there something here that maybe I could work with when I think about like things that I encounter on a daily? And that's when I kind of sat and thought through what that problem that I was solving would look like. And then I remember I went to Ghana with one of my good friends from business school. It was a big trip that like she planned because she's Ghanaian. And we were on the beach in some bathing suits, like all of the girls on the trip. And then one of my friends like commented on my bust and was like, "Oh, I didn't know we had the same body shape." And I'm like, "Yeah." And so we got to talking about kind of the same issues that we were both having with finding clothes, even just finding the bathing suit, the swimsuit that we were wearing on that trip. And so that's when I came back to school when we got back from that trip. And I was like, I think this is what I want to work on. I presented it to my class and they were like, "Oh, you should do it." And then I started Buzzoms.
All right, so with Buzzoms, it's buzzoms.com, I assume.
Yes.
All right, so with Buzzoms, what like were your top three challenges that you faced building that company?
Um, well, there were some challenges just because of the time that I started Buzzoms, which was in the midst of the pandemic. So in business school, I graduated in 2020. That was right in the middle of the pandemic. And so at that time we had all transitioned to like being in the house for our classes, and I had a lot of time on my hands. So I was like, this is when I can work on the company. So I started working on it. I had the first thing you really need to do when you're putting together like a clothing line is you make prototypes, what they call samples of your clothes, and then once you have that sample, it's just like that one piece. So if I'm making this dress, usually it starts with like a technical sketch. I have a production company or manufacturer make one, so that's the sample. We perfect it, and once it's perfected, it goes into production. So I have my technical sketches, but I didn't have anyone to make the samples. And so because it was COVID, I couldn't find, it was hard to find manufacturers at the time because you couldn't go into places in person. I was calling around trying to find things, but it was just really tough finding a manufacturer. Even outside of COVID, that tends to be one of the biggest things for people starting a fashion business is finding a good manufacturer. Whether that is here in the US or overseas, it can be very tough to find someone that makes your clothes for multiple different reasons. That was one big thing. Another thing is I am in marketing now, but I just didn't know how I was going to acquire customers. So I was like, okay, I knew that I couldn't just put something on the market and it just sell. That's not maybe like 10 years ago, that's how things work, but you like have to market your products. And I didn't know how that was going to look. So that was scary for me. But I leaned a lot into social media in the early days. It's free. And so even before we had a company, I was posting all my ideas, all my sketches. mood boards, everything on social to try to garner some attention and bring some awareness to what I was trying to do, so that by the time we launched, we at least had some small following so people would know that we were coming.
Got it. So that's pretty interesting. And then I remember you, like, I read somewhere where you went and found your own manufacturer. You did something in the fashion district, like you were looking for some aspect to add to your company. What was that about?
Well, so again, like we looked for manufacturers in the beginning after getting our first drawing, and my friends will laugh at this. We gave her like four things that the first manufacturer had to make. I found her in like Gowanus, which is, if you know New York, it's in this part of Brooklyn where all the warehouses are. So you would think, I'm like, okay, the Gowanus. This sounds like this is where a clothing manufacturer would be. So I found this lady just from calling around and like doing Google searches and stuff. I don't think she had like any, I don't know, clout per se, but gave her the sketches, gave her all of the like tech packs. And the main thing, like I had a button up and a tank top that I wanted her to make. This lady delivered a button up to me with no buttons,
A button up with no buttons.
a button up with no buttons.
That's crazy.
And then the tank top, my friends were joking. They were like, this looks like a hospital compression tank.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, I've just given this lady, I was also a broke college student, right? I'm still at the end of business school. So I'm like, I'm giving her like 500 of my dollars, and these samples are horrible. Like, what do I do? So at that point, we were like summer of 2020. So things were letting up a little bit. And that's when I just honestly was like, okay, I know we have the garment district, which is like the district in New York where they make a lot of clothes.
Okay.
And so I found this directory through the CFDA, which is the a Council for Fashion Design Association. And I found a directory and I was like, okay, where are all of the factories that are in the garment district? And then they have their addresses there. So I would call around and I would go to the factories,
What?
and I would bring that horrible button up with no buttons. And also with like some pictures and like inspiration photos of what I actually wanted it to look like. And I landed on a factory, apparel manufacturing, that the guy, Teddy, so nice. And you are just so sweet. And they produce here and they produce in China. And they had produced for a lot of big manufacturers too, or big design brands too. So I didn't know if they were going to take me in, but they did, because I think that they just kind of believed in what I was looking to do. So after that big hiccup, then I decided to try to go see some factories in person.
Wow, that's cool. And what was the name of that company again?
Apparel manufacturing.
Apparel manufacturing?
Yeah.
Yeah, make sure you guys get that. I'm sure it's
It
gonna pop
sounds
up.
really basic, but it's in New York on 39th Street. So
Told you you're gonna get some jewels here. Didn't I tell y'all? So look, anybody that's trying to get into the business, she just gave you a nice source. So, all right. So for the young lady that's trying to basically now get into your industry, what would, if you had a chance to rewind, what would be the top two things that you would do differently?
top two things I do differently. I always think it's nice to start with one product. Um, just because you can be very pointed in what you say in your messaging, how you launch it. You don't confuse customers. I think when you're making something new, and this is some feedback that I had got from like a pitch competition that I did early for Buzzoms. It was like, you could have just launched with the tank top. And I'm like, you're right. Especially when you're working on a limited budget, you don't need to spread your money thin across different lines. Like, just try to focus on one thing, especially when you think of inventory and stocking and all that stuff. Much more simpler for you if you have one SKU. So that's one of the things that I would have done differently. Other than that, I don't know. I think that that was probably the main thing. A lot of fashion, you're working on thin margins, so you have to be careful with what you produce and how much you produce. Hard to figure that out in the beginning because you don't have any models to go off of. You're brand new, but that is the main thing. The cash flow for fashion is small,
Okay.
so you have to be careful with how you spend your money.
Yeah, that's really good to know. So Everybody thinks fashion forward. How do you stay ahead of the trends in that world?
You know, I figured that I just didn't. I set Buttons up to not be a super trendy line, more so of like a foundational line, like making all of the things that you foundationally need in your wardrobe so that are classics. That's why I had a button up and tank tops and slip dresses because I didn't want to have to keep up with the fashion calendar. Not because it's not fun, but I felt like for the person I was dressing, they really just needed the bare minimum to start with. Like we were missing basic things for people who had body types like mine. So that is where I started. I do think these days you might, especially in the fashion business, is changing, and you might be able to be more lenient with like what your calendar looks like. Typically, if you are producing for like if you're going to launch in spring, you're producing at least 6 months before then. So you're thinking about your spring collection all the way back in winter might be even too late.
Hmm.
So having to do all that forecasting and stuff, especially in the beginning, I think it was easier and better for me to focus on those classic timeless pieces
Hmm.
so I could think about the production and what I was going to get out of the quality of the clothes.
That's some really good stuff. I guess my two last questions: technology, because technology impacts everything. Is it impacting your industry?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Anything like jump out? Because I know AI is big right now, taking over everything. Like,
Well, I mean, even the other day, like I did some sketches um for my for some of the other new designs I wanted to do through Midjourney, which is an AI illustrator. So you just type in, midi dress, summer feel, big, I don't know, flare, and then they'll give you a bunch of different photos. And then you
what?
don't have to take that photo, but you can use it as like inspiration. And then I can at least have something to go to the person who makes my tech packs and say, like, this is what I'm thinking. Like, this is a design inspiration.
Hmm.
It's I love AI for that because I can't draw. So that helps me because then I can easily get those sketches out without having to like outsource it to maybe someone on Fiverr or some other place. I can actually do it through AI. But I think tech and fashion has always been evolving. Like you've seen like people using AI to try on clothes and things like that. I don't think that's ever caught up. But in what I've seen a lot, especially because I'm working in like a sizing space, is like people using technology to try and make the fit for clothes better. Like body scanners and all types of things to try to help like produce clothes that are made specifically for the person that are buying them.
Wow. So
Um,
more customized.
yes, yeah,
I like that. And what was that tech that you said you could say something into and then it would spit out images?
that's Midjourney.
Mid journey. All right. Look, don't say that we don't put you guys on out there. Like I bring quality guests for a reason. So, I mean, beautiful interview, Marshay. Tell us what's next for Bosoms.
Well, for Buzzoms, I really have this inkling. The biggest thing for me, so I continue to thinking about like problem solving. It's summertime, and I can't find any dresses that I can wear that are strapless. So that's the next iteration. I think I've been working on it for a long time though, trying to figure out like a strapless solution. And a lot of companies do it, like, oh, this strapless bra that won't like come down, or a strapless bra that lasts without. Usually, what happens is like you're wearing the bra, and by the end of the day, it's at your stomach. It just doesn't stay there, especially if you have a larger bust. So that is what I'm trying to work on next. Is like how can we get strapless into play? And I think that actually is something that can catch on very fast because trying to sell people braless is hard. It's an industry that like didn't exist really, but coming to market with like a strapless bra in a new way is something that people understand.
Hmm.
And so I think if we're able to do that well, that our customers would be happy.
You just sparked one last question. I noticed knowing you that you stayed away from some of the third parties that have pushed you out there, like Amazon,
Mm.
Shopify. Why is that?
Well, I do use Shopify as a distribution platform.
Okay.
I didn't use Amazon much. I did test them, but the reason for me is like we had a lot of proprietary stuff behind Buzzoms. We had found a patent for the technology, which was basically there's like this thing within it. If I'm wearing this dress right now, there was something under the dress to help keep my bust supported and lifted. And that is what we had patented, kind of like an inner bra within the clothes. And so Amazon does have like this reputation of kind of remaking things. Like if they see it sells well on their platform, they might try to duplicate it. So in the
Wow.
beginning, I didn't want that to happen to us, and so I just wanted to protect our IP and stay off of those platforms. However, platforms like Shopify were great, and then we always collaborated with influencers, and I think I always was looking for like other businesses to partner with in order to like promote Buzzoms or like let them promote their business to our customer list and vice versa to like share that audience
Mhm.
versus using some a mass distribution platform like Amazon.
Okay. Just wanted to clear that up. So where can they find you?
You can find us on Instagram at Buzzoms or www.buzzoms. It's like buzz like a Z, OMS.com.
Well, listen, there you go, Marshay. You've been great. Again, I wanted to demonstrate that it's in the DNA sometimes. And hey, listen, you see, she's doing her thing. I had to let her speak for herself. I know you love the show. Make sure you punch that subscribe button. And remember, if hustling's in your DNA, ride with me and watch us grow.